she is.
Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I think Tavi got it going this time. Okay, everybody, welcome. This is the Snow Library Board of Trustees meeting. It's Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026 at 4:30 in the afternoon. We're in the Cape Cod room at Snow Library. Calling the meeting to order and seeing if anybody has any public comment or anything that they want to say. Okay, before we get going, I'm going to talk just for a couple minutes, and Tavi will probably say a couple quick things about the blizzard update. As you all know and experienced, we had quite a week. It was no school for 5 days, and the first thing to open back up besides town hall on Saturday was the library. And luckily, knock on wood, there was no damage from the storm to the library, although there definitely was some tree damage. I did see the company that the town hired dragging the tree body. I'm not sure exactly if that tree was around the corner or if it was by the children's section.
I think around the corner.
Around, so it was maybe on the property line in between us and Friends. But that was it was a huge section of tree. I did during the week have several exchanges with the town manager, Kim Newman, asking her what her thoughts were about the idea of the library opening up as one of the early buildings so that we could get people in here for daytime warming and access to the internet. As you probably all noticed when you were out driving around, there were 5 to 10 cars in the parking lot of the library from Wednesday on, utilizing the internet access during the day, and lots of people walking up and pulling on the library door handle to see if it was open. She and the fire chief felt that it wasn't appropriate to open up the library too soon. She wanted use of trained professionals in the shelter capacity for the town hall and the skate room. And she felt that that was appropriate relative to the number of people. She felt that that room that was being used wasn't maxed out, that it was fitting the need at that time. But clearly, there was also a hope that Snow Library was available for people to come use it. There were a few other area libraries that didn't open up as early as Wednesday that the public was able to utilize nearby, and that's a good thing. But the reality is that the trustees don't. It's not our decision to make, and it's the decision of the town manager's office. I don't know if you want to add anything else about what the experience was like for you this week.
It's just, the reasoning behind it was, and I realized people were all out, but the whole goal was to try to minimize as much as possible people being out on the roads. And so, it was the same thing, like, not encouraging people to go to the senior center, not encouraging them to come here simply because of safety issues. And also, all the crews were going around and doing all of that. So, I think that was the reasoning behind it. So,
yep.
There were people sitting in the hall because the skate room was overflowing when I was there Wednesday afternoon.
Oh, there were?
Yeah.
Okay.
Direct experience.
And I think given how many trees were down and that maybe some people probably shouldn't be out on the roads or were in areas that were not fully safe yet, I think that that was a wise decision.
A giant tree work truck in our driveway, so we couldn't be in our house.
Right. When they were cutting stuff down. Yeah.
I think that it would have been nice for day use. For those of us that didn't have heat, and those people in town that kind of needed to leave their house for some portion of the day to get warm. We ended up doing that. We would find a friend's house with heat, or we would go all the way to Eastham to go to my parents' house. They have a wood stove, but I think the library being right in the middle of the town, it would be nice if it was utilizing the the generator, and we could all kind of gather there for a little warm up.
Yeah, the Eastham Library had their meeting room open. They had ERT volunteers managing it. The director was there, but none of the other library staff was there. The library was closed off, and they had cots at the back of the room. They had tables in the middle of the meeting room so people could use their computers, and the Wi-Fi, the library's Wi-Fi is on the same system as the police and fire department. So the libraries maintain it because that was part of the clam setup. And then they had chairs all around the outside of the room. And it was heavily used. And, you know, I saw a family of 4 there, you know, with one cot, and then the father was playing games at the table with the kid. And, you know, it was working really well for the town, I think, and for the library.
Sure.
And Harwich was open too.
Early too. I mean, maybe Wednesday were they
Yeah.
open? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one idea is that if in fact Snow Library was open, maybe it would be with enough CERT volunteers so that, you know, it was the right people were here so that staff weren't, you know,
Right.
being given questions that they couldn't answer.
Right.
And maybe that's something that we can talk to about with the town manager about it. But, you know, I think that it was a very difficult week, and the town did a very good job. You know, they had to make tough decisions, and, you know, I'm glad I didn't have to make those decisions. But I think that Snow Library doesn't have a generator, and if we didn't have power, you know, that's a clear answer that we
I
would.
thought we did have a generator.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we did.
I wonder if there's some, I mean, this was at least from my point of view heading into Sunday night, was pretty unexpected what we ended up with last week. So I think there was a lot of thinking in the moment and trying to plan with the circumstances that had been hard to predict. I wonder if there's a way to get a sense of moving forward. Hopefully it's a while before we experience something like that again, but some sort of threshold for what would be an appropriate circumstance where, yes, something happens and people are out of power, but not to the degree that we couldn't have something like the library
Right.
open. I mean, I don't know how much of a science it is, what goes into that decision making about travel bans and lifting travel bans, but that might be part of a conversation so that at least the library is on the list of facilities to be taken into consideration as those decisions are unfolding.
Yeah, I mean, it was a state travel ban
Yeah.
that the governor imposed, and then she lifted it for a bunch of counties earlier in the week, but she kept it for Barnstable County, I think, until Thursday, maybe. I think, maybe I'm wrong.
It was unfortunate that the entire outer Cape, on out, well, in Orleans was considered 100% out too. And the high school was the overnight shelter, and the generator didn't work.
Yeah,
So
they had
they
heating and
ended up-
generator problems.
They ended up sending people to the technical school, and that's pretty far for people from Provincetown and Truro.
To drive.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
Glad it's behind.
I don't think we should be an overnight, but I think, you know, there were a lot of people looking for a warm place.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, glad it's behind us.
Mhm.
Like that. Okay, so turning back to our agenda, happenings at Snow Library. This is our third time we're working on this series, looking into various aspects of the library that we don't always talk about at our trustee meetings. Hearing from staff members about what their responsibilities are like and their experiences, and then also having questions and a little back and forth so that the public can hear what people are thinking about their specific area. Bob Burns, thank you very much for joining us today. The Technical Services Librarian. I'll turn it over to you and just talk for as long as you'd like to, and then we'll have some question and answer. We're just sort of all hanging out in the living room today.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So thank you all for having me today. Like I said, I'm Bob. I'm the Technical Services Librarian. Basically what that means is it's a mixture of cataloging and reference work. Today I'm going to be focusing solely on my cataloging work. We'll be doing reference a little later down the line with Val. Cataloging is primarily the process of getting books as fast as possible into circulation for the patrons. There are a number of serious issues that come involved in the process. Firstly, there are technically two records that we create when we are creating a record for the item that's being put into circulation. There's the main record that describes what the book is, if it's a book, if it's a DVD, who the publisher is, the size of the item, the number of pages, or the number of hours if it's a DVD or Blu-ray or CD. And then you have what's called the item record, which is the individual library's copy. And that covers shelving location, accession date, genre, prices, replacement costs, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a very meticulous process. It's very much a dot your I's and cross your T's situation. If so much as a semicolon is out of order, they will notify you about it. It's a case by case basis where you need to know what your library wants individually and what the consortium for clams wants as a collective whole, and balancing those wants. So for instance, our library for, let's just say, young adult books, will say young adult new is a shelving location for a new young adult. But a lot of libraries will just say new and that's it. Now, that big question that comes to cataloging is the level of detail that you want and the level of specificity you want. Some people want extremely specific descriptions of where their items are located, the various 651 descriptors, which is basically, there's this something called mark cataloging. It's machine readable cataloging. And basically, there's a field called 651, and it gives you the level of descriptions of what the book or item is about. So, if it's about friendship, or it's about historical fiction, or if it's about social relationships during World War II, or just any general description of what the item is, every item has at least a dozen descriptors, so that people who are looking for these things in the database will have as broad a net as possible for the item to be brought up. Now, the issue we run into in a lot of situations is some people are a little overly specific with what they want an item to be. So, for instance, in our last group meeting with the consortium, all the catalogers got together. There was a certain cataloger who said, well, these science fiction books that cover broad categories of fantasy fiction and stuff like that, shouldn't we have a separate field for fantasy? And then they were sort of explaining the process and what their thought process was. And I was personally against it, because if we get overly specific in our categorization, we lose the point of making categories in the first place. So you run into a situation where someone splits a field into two separate things, say science fiction and fantasy. And a couple of years down the line, you're going to run into a situation where someone says, well, fantasy doesn't really cover this specific book. It should be high fantasy and low fantasy, or hard sci-fi and low sci-fi. So you wind up splitting categories and splitting categories and splitting categories. And then it's all in the eye of what the individual cataloger decides is where the book goes. So if a patron comes along and they say, I'm looking for this book, they might wind up looking in a completely different section than what the cataloger had originally come up with, because the cataloger had one idea of what they wanted, and then the patron has a completely different idea, and the search engine has created so many choices for this individual patron that they don't know where to look and they don't know how to find what they're looking for. So we're trying to give people choice. We're trying to give the reader the ability to parse out what they want. And we're trying to be as inclusive and broadly inclusive in our categorization process, but we run the risk of making so many choices that we turn the search engine into this Byzantine labyrinthian thing that's impossible to navigate. So that's one of the big things that I try to sort of counteract when I discuss these things in meetings, is this sort of overdevelopment of the system. Beyond that, I would say on average, we get about maybe 70 to 100 items per week.
Wow.
It's a process of trying to make sure that things are delivered as efficiently as possible. My general approach is I tend to prioritize adult books over children's books and adult materials over children's materials, mostly because adult books and adult materials have a higher reservation count. Children's books, broadly speaking, maybe they'll have one or two that have any reservations. Adults materials usually have at least anywhere between 5, and the maximum I've ever seen was 430. Um, so it's a question of trying to get these materials out as efficiently as possible. Some might say, hey, Bob, you're kind of discriminating against the kids a little bit by focusing on the adult stuff. And that's a very valid point of view to have. However, it's a question of making sure that the most demand is met by the most people. In terms of priorities for adult materials, we do have these blue slips that are special requests made by individual patrons. We will have patrons come in every now and again and say, hey, the library doesn't have this book. No library on the Cape has it. No library in the Commonwealth catalog, which is the entire state of Massachusetts, has it. And I'm not willing to use the Clio system, which is every library basically in the continental United States, but it costs a certain amount of money via postage to request that item. So they say, it's not anywhere local. I'm not willing to pay this. Could you please maybe purchase the item? So what I'll do is I will look over the request. I will collaborate with the assistant director and the director. We will determine if it's a good fit for our library. And if it is a good fit, we will purchase the item. Now, one of the big issues that I've noticed with the cataloging process and determining what to accession into the system is trying to keep an objective point of view. I can't look at my own biases get in the way. So let me give you a practical example. There was a patron who came in and said, hey, I want this book. I looked at it. I looked it up in Amazon. It did not impress me personally. It was one of those self-published items. It was about some shock jock radio guy. I'm not a radio fanatic, so I didn't really know this person or what they were about. I looked at a couple of the preview pages. It was a self-published book. It did not look entirely appealing to me personally. So, but again, I thought to myself, is this something that would have some broad level of appeal? So I did a little research on the author. The author has a fairly dedicated subculture dedicated to him. I guess his name was Howie Carr. So I purchased the book, and lo and behold, in the year and a half since it's gone, was first published or first bought by the library, it's gone out about 20 times, and it'll go out mostly through Commonwealth catalog. So every other month, we're shipping it over the bridge to either Plymouth or to Brockton or to Westchester or anything like that. Aside from that, it's a question of trying to balance the needs of the public while making sure that we are doing things correctly. We run into a lot of situations where the book will be sent to us maybe so much as 1 month to even 2 months before the publication date. So the last thing you ever want to do is to catalog a book, scan it, check it in, and have a patron get a hold on it before the publication date. The publishers are very, very serious on making sure that release dates are honored and accepted, and that can have repercussions. So it's a question of making sure that people get what they need as fast as possible while making sure the information and the metadata is all there and available without crossing any lines. In addition, one issue that we're running into at the moment is that there were two big publisher companies, Baker and Taylor and Ingram. These are the big giants of the cataloging system for libraries. Baker and Taylor went bankrupt recently. We were a Baker and Taylor subscription, the World Snow Library. So we and a great many other companies and libraries are jumping over to Ingram right now. And unfortunately, inevitably, there's going to be backlog. There is going to be a sort of process where the transportation issues are just going to be overwhelmed. And there is going to be a bit of a slowdown in terms of the service we provide. Now, obviously, we need to make sure that we can counterbalance the workflow so that when there is a backlog, we can make sure that it's kept to an appropriate minimum so that books are not waiting on the shelf for months at a time, or even weeks, or even days at a time. I think we've been pretty good at this process. I've never left anything that needed publishing, that was past its publication date more than a week at most. And yeah, so that's basically the breadth and depth of what I do. Now, one final point that I want to make is that as a cataloger, one of the biggest issues I have is trying to determine where to place an item. This is especially true in nonfiction. So in nonfiction, you'll run into all sorts of cases where a book's placing is subjective. Just as an example for today, I was cataloging a book called The Race Against Terror, Chasing an Al-Qaeda Killer at the Dawn of the 21st Century. So this was a book about, obviously, the American intervention and the war on terror. And the book itself did not have a Dewey Decimal System number that it would prefer to be under. You need to check to make sure each book, sometimes they say whether or not they have a classification number or not. So I was looking through off-Cape systems. I was checking our local systems because it's up to the individual cataloger where a book goes. I'd say about 3/4 of people in the off-Cape system, in the Merrimack book cataloging system, placed it in the 958s, which is generally history and geography. And then 1/4 put them in 345, which is social sciences. So it's a question of, you can't read every book to get a good hint of what it's about. The best thing you can do is read the description, maybe look at the chapters and titles to see in the table of contents what's what, and make the best judgment call you can. Another issue you want to make sure when considering the classification of a book is what your readership is going to be looking for. Are they going to, do they use the 345 section more, or are they using the 950 section more? If that's the case, maybe it's a good idea to prioritize putting it in the 950s if you've got a public that is more history based as opposed to going into the social sciences. So a lot of it's not guesswork. It is a process of just basically trying to look at two different but similar things and making the best judgment call about where it can go and maximizing its visibility for the patrons.
Great. Thanks so much. Questions for
I have a
Bob?
question.
Yes.
Bob, what percentage of the books that you're cataloging are you doing with copy cataloging, where the record completely existed, you're just attaching our book to the record? And what percentage are you actually creating a record?
So it's a mixed bag. I would say it's 60-40. I'd say 40% it's completely creating the record from scratch.
Really? That's so high.
It is high, and that it impacts efficiency, unfortunately. I've gotten a lot of books just today. There were a lot of large print books, unfortunately. Large print, normal print is released first, and then large print is released a couple of weeks or even a month later. And you'll run into a lot of situations where we're the first people to get the large print. So if you're the first person to get it, you create the master record and then you do the item record. So I would definitely say 40-60.
I have a question. What was the book that was that record breaking most ever waitlist?
I think it was that what was it called? It was the Crawl Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh yeah.
That one we had like 3 or 4 copies in circulation press and express book. Now here's one more thing. Now that you mentioned the backlog of requests, one thing that I do that's different from what other libraries do is when you're looking in the Koha system, you'll see stuff is on order. You'll see that all the time. Oh, this book is something we're planning to get in the future. I never place an item record on order. I don't create an item record until after I physically have the book in hand. The reason I decided to do that was because we've run into situations in the past where, say, a Blu-ray or a DVD is promised to be released by a company, and then the distribution company all of a sudden says, no, we're not going to print that Blu-ray after all. We're not going to release that DVD. And I've seen situations where there were 9, 10 people in line waiting for a DVD or a Blu-ray or something like that. And they had to be contacted and said, hey, this has been canceled. So I don't like the idea of promising something to the public and then having to say, oh, actually, turns out no. Because they do think it's our fault. They don't really accept the idea that it's the publishers who have reneged on this promise. They think it's the library that's reneging on them.
Mark, do you have a question? Anybody else have a question? Alrighty. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure speaking with you all.
Thank you.
I look forward to speaking with all of you in the future.
Yeah.
Thank
Keep up the
you.
great work. Okay, I'm gonna have Tavi talk a little bit about the next item, which is the Town of Orleans new logo rollout inside the back of your package.
Yeah.
One page, and Tavi did color print it.
Weird.
Can you see that?
I can see it. I pulled it up here. Thank you.
Okay, so I attended a meeting a couple of weeks ago where Amanda Converse, who is the public information officer for the town, has been working on this project of creating a logo so that it's like a branding. It's, it's so that things become identifiable. In fact, the libraries try to do this. I think, Mark, you've mentioned it at a couple of meetings, like having noticeable things that you see them right away and the company or the organization you're talking about. It also makes it look like you've got everything branded, you've got everything all together. So the ultimate goal is to have this logo on almost everything. So, I mean, the town seal is different. There's official documents that needs to be on, but the goal is to have the logo on everything. And that would include the library, fire department, the police department, COA, and so forth. Now, you know that a lot of us, for example, the police station, the fire station, the COA, the library, we have a logo. And so I had mentioned that to Amanda Converse, and she had said she'd be happy to come and make a presentation to the library just about, what the purpose of doing the logo is, and also, the possibility of having it not to replace another logo, but to have it also along with it. And so, for example, and this is just an example, like, so in a document like this, you could have like the Orleans logo on one side and have the library logo or the COA on the other. So that's really what it is. But if Amanda comes here and makes a presentation, you could ask her, specific questions about anything. And the town, when last I heard, they don't have a specific date, like everything's going to be transferred over by this, but it's sort of a rollout process. And this is going to also apply to like all the electronics too, like the website, anything, so that all the messaging all has the same logo, or at least has the town's logo on there if it has any other logos as well.
I think Instagram is already
Populated with this. Yeah.
Looks nice.
Oh, this is on Instagram already.
Yeah, it comes up on my
Oh,
the
great.
stories at the top. I just have that. It looks very professional, and I like. Yeah, I think
It's
great.
it's hard. You can imagine when you got to go through.
Oh, I
think
can't
of all the
imagine.
different places where all of this goes. Like, you think of letterhead, and you think of envelopes, and you think of the website, and the social media, and so forth and so on. So.
Are people liking the colors? I asked because I'm colorblind, so
Oh,
I
that's
can't comment. But are these colors going over well?
Yes, and so that's some, and the purpose of the colors is, of course, the blue, of course, because of the water, and then you could see that's supposed to represent the rays of the sun, I understand, and so like you notice those are all kind of sun-like colors in there. And Amanda can talk more about that, certainly if she's invited to a meeting here.
Has she offered any guidance on, I know they're a separate entity, but people think of the Friends as the library. And would the Friends be asked to accept the logo too? Or is there any reason to think that it needs to have the logo? Or
That's a very good question, Mark, and that's probably I didn't even think of that. I was thinking more of the the library proper as the municipal department, but that's a good question too.
Jerry, do you have any?
Well, the
Have you
Friends
talked-
have that seagull logo that we've been using for years and years.
Yeah.
But we've never put the town of Orleans, its
Right.
logo on.
I mean, you're your own separate 501c3.
Right,
Yeah,
and they're not
yeah, I
funded by
think-
the town.
Yeah.
That's right, so I don't
Yeah,
think
wouldn't-
that probably
yeah,
wouldn't.
No, I just think it's a sort of gray area that, I mean, I don't know as people always think about lifetime learning as a friends thing. I'm going to the library to go to lifetime learning.
Yep.
They think it's a library offering.
Mhm.
And yes, they're wrong. So I'm like, does that mean that the logo should be on it, or no, I'm not saying it should be, but I'm saying that it is a question that'd be nice to get somebody to answer, Amanda or someone.
Maybe next month we can have her in to talk to us a little bit about it. I mean, I think if they'd taken the ship logo and they'd put it in the middle of this, our conversation would be very short.
Right.
But I think we're definitely in a sort of duality here that we'll have to figure out. And, I think that we can be in a situation where we have the ship logo on the street, because that's been there for a long time and was just redone recently. But then have potentially two, but maybe certain documents, we wouldn't have to have two on. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's a new topic. And, some people are really used to seeing certain things. So when they see this new thing, they're going to be like, what exactly is that? So we want to be prepared to tell the public what's happening as well.
And I definitely think if you have any questions, think about them and write them down. So if Amanda comes here, because I think the more you think about it, there are all these questions that come up regarding it, like to what extent and where do you use the logo, and that, like, the sign is a good one. I mean, because that, to my knowledge, hasn't even come up yet in a discussion.
I guess I'd follow up the question of whether or not an organization is separate from the town, whether they're allowed to use that.
Right. Yeah.
I realize we got the official town seal, and that is one thing. Is that just sort of I'll use a word, playful thing that anyone in town can use on any town-related activities to announce that it's New Orleans?
All I can say is they would like all the municipal town departments, whether they're at the town hall or not. But as to the extent of it, that would definitely be a question for Amanda Converse. So.
Yeah, the question that follows is if someone were not related to associated with the town officially and used it, would the town object? Does the town own that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. It's like, my understanding was a long, long time ago, sometimes when the Friends wanted to send out letters or something like that, they've come to the library. This is a long time ago, and they would say, do you have any stationery for us to use? Because it had Snow Library out there. But see, that's the town. That's like a library correspondence as opposed to the Friends. And so, as you say, even though people think they're together, because one's a 501c3 and the other is a municipal department, they kind of have to be kept separate. So those are all great questions.
When is she coming to the library to speak?
They haven't set up a date yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was at this meeting and I raised these questions, because I said, we were talking about the logo, I said, well, the library has a logo, and then the COA director said, well, the COA's got one. And then she mentioned, well, I know, because the police and the fire also have them. So that's when I said, it sounds like there are going to be a lot of questions. Do you think you'd mind coming in, making a presentation? And she said she would be happy to.
Okay. I'm sure someone from the Friends would be happy to listen into that meeting if and could invite us. It would be great.
Okay. Maybe next month.
Yeah, just let me know and I'll get in touch with them, and then we'll, I'll definitely let Tracy know, and then whoever is the rep, can be here, or maybe she will want to get it out wider and maybe more than one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Any more questions on that? Moving on to the next, staying in the change department, community refrigerator discussion.
So I was approached by the assistant health agent, Heather Holbrook, about the possibility of having a community refrigerator at the library. And so a community refrigerator, as I mentioned here, it's a shared resource among the community. People come in, they take food. Obviously, there's no cost for it, and they were looking at different places to have it. And my understanding is there were really only two places that they were considering. They meaning the health department, town manager's office. And that was 44 Main Street or the library. They needed some place that is open enough hours. They'd like a nice central location. It also helps if people are going to a place that they have positive thoughts and feelings towards. 44 Main, my understanding is, didn't work out because they looked at different locations there and none of them were suitable. When Heather came here to take a look, it would go in the lobby, and we looked at an area in there, a possible place it could go where there's an outlet. And measured the dimensions. Now, if you have any questions about like specific particulars, I'll have to get those for you. I don't have any. I just saw a photo of it, of the refrigerator. It's not a large refrigerator. And the other thing is they wanted in an area where people feel comfortable taking the food. So in other words, you don't want it anywhere like near the circulation desk or near where a lot of the staff are, because you want to, the whole point of this is for food security. And so you want people to feel free to take whatever is there. There are certain questions I have, and there are certain potential issues that may arise. And what I would do is discuss all of those with the health department. But I did say, that was going to be on the agenda here, and I did say, I certainly, speaking from the staff point of view, I mean, we are open to it. We understand the importance of a community refrigerator. Provincetown has a community refrigerator. Quite a few libraries, I don't know if they're on the Cape, have a community refrigerator and stuff. The staff would not be responsible for cleaning it, stocking it, taking donations for it. All of this would be controlled by the health department.
Do you know how often they would be here? I mean, is it a daily visit or is it a?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, someone from the health department would be here every day to check on, expiration and the condition of it, the stocking of it, and so forth.
I mean, I especially think in the summer, it could be empty within a very short period of time, given how much more traffic we have in the summer. And, through the schools, food giveaway programs have really flourished over the course of the years. And after the blizzard, they had a giveaway, I think, on Thursday.
Friday
I
for the
think it
weekend.
was Thursday for food for the weekend.
Yeah.
And we ended up accumulating several bags, and the bags were really helpful and a lot of different things. And I think, a program like this is very good. I think the most important thing is the location and making sure that staff is really on top of it so that it doesn't become a problem. And if there is some sort of an issue and your staff sees it, and then they notify the health department and they come and deal with it, a few hours
We
early.
need to confer with the fire department before we put something in the lobby, just to make sure that it doesn't in any way impede access from the meeting room or from the main part of the library. Just make
Definitely,
sure.
yes.
Yeah,
Like
I
an
would check that out.
egress issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So you're thinking, where are you thinking?
So it's right in the lobby. You see, and some things may need to be moved around. So currently where that plant is in the lobby, to the right of the alarm panel.
I think I'll look.
taking a field trip.
Owl's not going to be happy, but
I can show you if.
yeah, okay. I have a general idea of where.
Oh, very well.
So you mean between the doors? So in other words, basically, you take this plant out. And if we go right.
So the entry foyer.
Yeah, he said lobby. Foyer.
Oh, it's where the benches are in between the doors. Okay. Okay, got it.
Yes. So if you walk in, it would be on your right-hand side before you go through the second set of doors.
That makes sense. That's a good spot.
So I do think making sure that it's plugged into a ground fault outlet as well, you know, and that it's functioning as a ground fault outlet. I mean, if, you know, there's a lot of water that comes in when it's raining a lot. People are tracking moisture in that area. Want to make sure that that's a safe location and that it's not a hazard for.
Yeah, if you have any questions, I will certainly raise them with Heather.
I was wondering, because Lower Cape Outreach is right around the corner, how is this effort? Is this effort done separately from them or in coordination with them or?
I don't know for sure. I do know this is through a grant Heather mentioned. They applied for a grant through Barnstable County. And I don't remember the organization, but we were actually approached totally separately from the health department about having a community refrigerator a few years ago by another organization. Whatever happened in the conversation, it ended up not happening. We had a few emails back and forth, but but no, this is a grant that the health department applied for, and this is coming from Barnstable County. But I don't know if it's in cooperation with that organization, but I can certainly find out.
You also need to be sure that it doesn't impede access to that emergency panel in any way, because people need to be able to get to that. I mean, if you put a fat refrigerator in front of it, then you can't reach, you know what I mean? It might not be something that the health department has in mind when they're looking at the space, but we need to have the big picture, you know.
Thank you, Tally, for being for making sure you look at all these details. I mean, it definitely is a big change, but I think it's in the direction of the library's
It's
been
not a
moving in.
bad idea, it's just space.
It doesn't, you know, and there's things that we do like our Wi-Fi hotspots that people can check out, and you know, it's all these different things in the library of things. You know, it's something 10, 15 years ago you wouldn't imagine that libraries would be so involved in, but they really are. So food security is definitely an important topic.
What do they do with a Wi-Fi hotspot? They use it outside the building?
I knew you were going to ask a question as soon as I brought it up. Yes, they can take it home.
It works elsewhere.
Yes, so the whole thing started because when people would visit for the summer and they were at some summer rentals, there was no Wi-Fi. And so instead of coming into the library, you can take out, it's like they used to call them boosters. And so you have basically gives you internet access. And so but they're so popular. I mean, people use them all the time now. So, and at any given time, none of them, we now have 20 of them.
Wow.
And
20.
Yeah. And we never thought that they would be that popular, and they're never all here. They're always being checked out.
What's the cost per each one for that 1 year? And it's not 5G, right? It's not like for streaming Netflix.
No.
For email and browsing, and
so
it's okay if we can.
Let me. Well, I have it written down somewhere. I think the only thing I have is an annual cost, continually going up.
Sure. Okay. Does anybody have any more questions about the refrigerator stuff? Okay, so moving on to the financial report. Bill, is there anything that you'd like to highlight in this month's
Well,
report?
we have, such a nice, healthy budget. It seems to me normally that I'm always looking for something of interest to highlight. So I just want to point out this time, this was the case last month too, but it's grown further. Just in this, early part of the year, we have $18,000 in contributions, gifts, which seemed to me to be a nice amount. And the trust funds have gone up proportionally with that at the bottom. And we have a similar number at the very bottom right to last time we met. So things look healthy.
Okay, anybody have any budget questions on the summary?
Well, I'm just noticing, I guess that's part of the Friends budget. I was surprised to see the children's spending at 86% because we've got quite a few months left in the fiscal year. That jumped out at me.
Well, when I saw that, I was wondering if they continue to have money flowing in through the year. And I don't know the answer.
Too, the other thing is too, that it's broken into categories here.
Right.
So you see like books and materials, children and other programs, museum passes. The utilization, the total utilization is 61%. So we're on target for that. And if we overspend in one category, as long as there are funds still in the other categories, we can use that as well. So as long as we stay within that total budget of $45,000, we're fine. But some of them do end up getting spent more. Like we probably with the museum passes, there probably isn't going to be a lot much spent now because a lot of that is a timing thing.
Sure. Okay. Alrighty, moving on to the library director's report. Tavi, do you have anything you want to add other than your?
Nothing, anything, everything was either in my report or I discussed it already.
Okay. In my chair's report, one item I want to talk just briefly about is March 3rd, tomorrow, the select board is going to be having a joint.
March 13th.
Sorry, March 4th.
Okay.
A joint meeting with the finance committee to talk about the capital improvement plan. I have a basketball game that I'm coaching, so I won't be able to make it, but I've got Tavi and possibly Mark will be there in case questions come up. They did agree to split things up in terms of having design stuff go first and then construction stuff go the next year. I'm hoping that is in there just as that, and that you don't have to jump up and down. You're just there as a witness. But I think we were encouraged by Mark to be there so that if questions come up. Elaine, is there anything that you'd like to add in regards to that? Okay. Thank you so much for coming, because it's so good that you know exactly what we're trying to do. Very important.
I did verify too with Mark Real, it is in there. And so I'm just gonna be there basically in case anybody has any questions or anything about it.
Did a copy of the CIP go into the large package for tomorrow's meeting?
Yes,
Okay, so I'll look at that
but
tonight.
there was a separate packet that says budget and CIP.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But what's curious about the CIP is I think the only thing for the library that's on there is this building instruction. There's nothing, I think, that relates to the building,
No, it's just that, we don't,
so there's no capital in there for anything that relates to the library.
But there's capital elements that relate to the library that it's in the annual budget.
Capital meaning things over $5,000.
Right.
No, well, I mean, the regular budget, the operating expenses, just repair and maintenance.
Repair and maintenance of public property, right? Okay. And the second piece is that, did I say this last month? Stop me if I did. Nora Johnsmayer is running for the other vacant library trustee spot with Lindsay. So I haven't checked whether there's any other folks who have pulled papers on that. But she's got several forms that are floating around out there getting signatures right now. I do not think we'll be in a situation where we'll have to have a debate for multiple trustees running for the office, but if we do, I'll let you know right away, because that would come up pretty soon. I think we had 4 running at one point before. So that's it on my report. So we've got minutes to approve for February 3rd. And the minutes that were sent out were January, but the February minutes have been circulated. Does anybody have any questions at all about the minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, because we've got Lindsay online, we'll have to do a roll call. Do you want to start, Lindsay, if we're all in favor of approving the minutes?
I have to abstain because I wasn't there at that meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
I say aye.
Jamie, aye.
Mark, aye.
Bill.
5, so 501 approved. Great, thank you. Now over to Jerry. Thank you for waiting patiently.
It's always interesting.
I always expect, will a Friends representative ever stand up and walk out before their time? Be like, "Ah."
That would be friendly.
Yeah. Thanks,
With
Jerry.
all the friends.
Right.
Okay, so I'll begin with our treasurer's report. Our gross fiscal year profit, fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30 every year. So as of January, that profit was $82,600, about $7,500 higher than last year due to our later membership drive. We started a little bit later this year, and our annual appeal revenue, which is a good thing. We established this annual appeal that we hope will happen every year, mid-November, to capture the end of year giving spirit, if you will. Our year-to-date contribution expenses were about $26,700, which is lower than this time last year, mainly due to the timing of periodical payments, but pretty much standard when we look at past years. Our total operating expenses year-to-date were about $18,600 up from last year, mainly due to the printing and mailing expenses for our annual appeal, which ran about $4,800. So, but we made a healthy profit from that mailing. Year-to-date operating income stands at $37,400, and our year-to-date investment income was $27,500. Hopefully, the recent events won't make that go in a southerly direction over the next 6 months or so. Year-to-date net income is about $64,900, about 16.8K higher than last year due to higher investment income, higher gross profit, and the timing of payments for periodicals built into some of these other items that I mentioned earlier. Now, in other news, Friends have renewed their membership with Philanthropy Partners of the Cape and Islands to help us with long-term goal of fundraising for a new snow library. It's an interesting organization, has an annual, a very well-organized annual meeting in November where we hear stories of the different ways that different philanthropies raise money, different money-raising strategies. It's very well attended. There are hundreds of people there representing, probably hundreds of organizations across the Cape. Wow. Pretty impressive organization. And many of us have gone to the meetings now for about 3 years, and you come away with some great ideas. I picked up the idea, for example, of the membership.
The annual appeal.
No, not the annual appeal. The membership organization system that we use now. We have all of our members are now in a database. We have everything organized in a database. can actually now have a great view to the dips and rises annually of our fundraising. And every constituent, we can see their giving record over the past. We have 3 years of data in there now. So it's really, really helpful for us to help us strategize our fundraising activities as we go forward.
Great. That sounds like a great network.
That's absolutely, yeah. So it's a great organization, and it's not terribly expensive to join. It might just maybe a couple of $100, I believe. The Lifetime Learning Spring Session begins on March 16. Registration information is available in the library and in the online on our website, Friends website, as well as the library website. Course advertisement will also begin appearing soon on social media and at the Chatham Orpheum Theater before movies. If you've gone to the Orpheum the past couple of years now, you'll actually see Lifetime Learning touted before the movie begins. So it's rather gratifying. And last two items, the Friends, at our last meeting, we modified our membership tiers beginning we'll begin with our next fiscal year. We have 5 tiers: 25, 50, 100, 250, and 500. That's different from the past. The current rather is 20, 30, 50, 100, 250. And there will, of course, always be an other on every form that we send out. So someone can send us $5, or they can send us 5,000.
Sure.
We'll take whatever. Finally, we had a high-level discussion around the idea of a twice-yearly newsletter. And I believe Tracy is trying to organize a meeting, Tavi, with you and Jamie with you,
Yep,
to see how the 3 entities can work together to, if you believe, of course, as we do, that it's a good idea as part of our communication process out to the public. The feeling behind that strongly is that it's not good enough for us to go out twice a year asking for money. We need to add in some additional communication with updates on what the library is doing, how the new library planning is going, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just that outreach and creating a closer communication, if you will, closer touch, if you will, with our constituents. In fact, that idea grew out of our annual appeal discussions. Just that we'd like to talk to our constituents, more than just like give us money.
right.
We'd like to report back to them what we're giving back to the community. So I look forward to the discussion with Tavi, Jamie, and Tracy to see if we can agree on the format and time. We were thinking the timing of that would be April and then October. And for us, selfishly, it sets us up for, April sets us up for a June fundraising drive, membership drive, and the October sets us up for the end of year appeal. So just making that tight connection.
Great. I think it's so important getting out the word, all the stuff that you're doing. If the library isn't talking about it, you should be talking about it too. And, there's things that you can say that the library isn't, saying on a regular basis, and that's helpful.
Yeah, and this, obviously, we do a lot of the larger we do much more communication. The library reaches out to its constituents through, the website, through Facebook, et cetera, as well as friends. But this is just one more thing. And we thought it would be a paper mailing.
Oh, so it'll be printed?
Printed, yep.
Okay.
Yep. But Tracy will give you more details than I could today.
Okay. Any questions for Jerry and all the things that he's talked about? As always, thank you so much for everything that the Friends do. The recreation programming in the town of Orleans has started to have a conversation about how to potentially create a Friends of Orleans rec. So I think that would be a fantastic new arm for the rec department, which has changed a lot over the course of the
Yeah, yeah.
last couple of years. And there's a lot that you and Tracy know that we could just do a mind meld with you to tap into, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Because it's, you know, it's a big change for any town entity to have a partnership like this.
Right.
Okay, does anybody else have anything that they want to bring up before we finalize the meeting? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Take care.
That's funny. It's still recording.
I think he's right. Oh, no.
How many eyes on there? I see two eyes here.